So Gary, thanks for indulging us in this chat. We're happy to have you on the show. I guess
Cool.
Sons of Steel could be described as a complete rock and roll mindfuck. And like, it's very hard to describe for people listening or watching that have never seen it, perhaps never heard of it. How would you describe it to them?
I don't ask me. It came out of my head, man. And it was like in some sort of hazy sort of days. So, 1988, 1987, they were pretty weird times. Actually, it started earlier than that. It started about 1983 when I produced a heavy metal band in Perth called Black Alice, who were called Gypsy at the time, and I changed their name. And because I had this vision that an atomic bomb had gone off in Alice Springs and had blackened the Ayers Rock and the whole schmear. And so Black Alice became an entity. And then I flew them to Singapore and recorded their album there. And I just fell in love with their music. So we released that in Europe. Everything was cooking with that. And what do you reckon? The band splits up right at the moment when the records come out, right? So I came back to Sydney with my head between my bloody legs and thought, oh Jesus, what am I going to do now? So I started a record label, and I put the record out, and I put a whole pile of others out, and started making music videos. And then I thought of the idea about making a short film. So I went and talked it up with Hoyts, made the short film called Nightmare. But in doing so, I flew Rob Hartley, the lead singer of Black Alice, out to Sydney to star in the film. And from that grew this character, which was in him anyhow, this Black Alice character. He was a sort of save the world sort of bloke, Rob. He was a bigger than life. When he got up on stage in Blazers in downtown Perth, he took up the whole stage. He was just an incredible person, and this voice that was almost operatic. But he was stuck in Perth doing AC/DC covers. Uh-huh. So, this was a release. He'd never acted before. I knew it'd work. Threw him up in Nightmare. It happened. Then I took Nightmare around the world and played it at every conceivable festival I could find, even in heavy metal discos that sound strange term, but they were happening throughout the Netherlands and places like that. And picked up this vibe that people really loved, the idea of Nightmare, which was about a guy appearing in a hologram and in the future in a post-apocalyptic world. And Yahoo Serious was my assistant director on Nightmare. So he and I actually traveled to all of these places in Europe, flogging the film, just trying to pick up on the vibe. At the same time, we were talking up young Einstein because that's what he wanted to make. And we ended up in America, pitching it to studios and stuff over there. And I got one interested, which was Empire Films. And they said, go away and write a script. If it's any good, we'll fund it. I said, yeah, all right. So I came back to Australia and I sat down. I started writing a script and got it together and sent it over to Empire. And they said, we love it. Needs a little bit of polishing, but we love it. We could fund it. We'll just find a director. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I'm the director. And they went, no, mate, no, sorry. We have to make it here. And we have to change it from being Australia-centric and blah, blah, blah. And I went, stick that in your rear. So I flogged it around in Australia and met a guy called Charles Waterstreet, who they based The Rake on, the show The Rake. Mm-hmm. That's Charles. He's a barrister in Sydney. And showed him the script and he said, oh, wow, this is great. So he funded the development of it. And then my secretary at the time, Ros Wason, who's in the film, plays Hope, she was in at a supermarket and she's at the checkout counter talking to this bloke checking out. And it was James Vernon, who's a film producer at the time. And she flogs in the idea about Sons of Steel. And next minute, we've got a prospectus out and we're trying to make the damn thing. So that's how it all came about.
Wow. I mean, I got a few questions to take from that. I mean, firstly, like, what does a heavy metal disco look like? But we can put that aside. Like, but like, I'm wondering, like, you were initially given this offer to make it overseas, with another director. Were
Yeah.
there any, like, in hindsight, were there any regrets in turning that down, or are you completely happy that you stuck to your guns and got it made the way you did?
There's two sides to that coin. One, I probably would have made had made the film that I wanted, except it would have been missing the Australian components, and that would have destroyed it.
Yeah.
But the other side of it was that I couldn't get to make the film I wanted to make here because I had a limited budget. I had the catering budget of an American film.
Yeah.
And even then, we raised $3 million. By the time we paid off all the leeches that lived in the film industry, the banks, the lawyers, the QCs, the opinions, all of these things you had to pay off. And I had one of the best production designers in the country, Grace Walker, who just came off Crocodile Dundee, right? Who fell in love with the script, and he signed on. And I had Joe Pickering, fantastic director of photography. I had all the gun people, the rock and roll jet set of filmmaking in Australia, all attached because they loved the script. I discovered within a couple of months of making the film that I only had $800,000 to make it out of $3 million. Yeah. So I had to put $3 million up on the screen. First time director, had to put $3 million up on the screen. I had to go back to all those blokes, Grace Walker, and convince them that their budget, which was destroyed, they still had to try and put the same look up on the film. So we did, but it was all location. All that you see in that film is location around. There's only 2 sets in the whole film. And it was all shot at night, man, at night, in situations whereby the Sydney Council wouldn't even give us the right to shoot at St James Station. We had to do that and then run away when the cops came.
I guess like shooting at night at least adds production value because you can get trippy lights and things like that to sort of elevate.
Well, it ends up with a really stoned crew. That's what happens, man.
It gives it a really good kind of like Subway-esque vibe. Like it feels like it's when you're like between midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're coming home from like a night out, and it's kind of like this twilight time where you feel like you've got all the time in the world, and it's not you don't have to be at work in 4 hours or 8 hours or whatever the thing is. Like it really has that kind of vibe.
Man, I went on a bloke took me on a tour of underground Sydney before I made the film with Grace. Grace Walker found this dude. He does it with this sort of lantern, and he takes you down. He's like a decrepit monster out of one of your movies, right? And he takes you down. He's like, oh, you wait for the hunchback to come out, right? And he's down, and he takes you into these tunnels, and and Sydney's lousy with them. They're all World War II bunkers, and they were the way that they used to travel between the courts and Government House in this narrow tunnel that they rode push bikes up in 1907 or something, right? Bizarre. And he took me down into this tunnel, and it had roots of trees growing out of it from above, like these Moreton Bay fig trees, and it was dripping, and it was all freak out. And then he turns the bloody light off, and it's just pitch black. And, you crap yourself, right? Well, out of that, I came out of that saying, I want to put that on screen somehow. Joe, how do I shoot in the dark? And he did it.
Certainly did. It's funny, though. There's like that era when this film came out. There were, I won't say films that were just like this, but there was a feeling in cinema in Australia because you had like Smoke 'Em If You Got 'Em and Pandemonium and Raven's Gate and Spirits in the Air all coming out around about the same time. There must have been something in the water. Was there like a palpable energy that you were all tapping into? What was going
on? It's funny. Look, James Vernon wrote Raven's Gate, right? He was the writer,
right?
And I'd shot a music video with meaningful eye contact only 3 years before the film, which Alex Proyas was in my film clip, which is the 2-Up film clip, Parallel World. So he's actually in it, and he and Peter Miller directed it because I was the act, so I was in the clip, so I couldn't direct it. So the vibe was there. we all talked about this post-apocalyptic type vibe. And you know, when I shot Nightmare, it was all shot at the St. Peter's brick pits. George Miller sent people down to look at what I was doing because he was going to shoot. He pinched some bits out of it, like the units I had in it. These people that all had red hair and they were sort of like zombioid type characters. He pinched them for Mad Max, right? So he sent his spies down to see what we were doing. So there was a general vibe going on about that. And it was coming out of music because all the rock clips were starting to do that sort of stuff. They're all getting a little bit more creative than just shooting in the studio, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the thing when you talk about music videos. That's exactly what your movie is. It is like a glorious extended music video. And which leads me to MTV. I heard something about the premiere on MTV. What's the story there?
Well, I managed Richard Wilkins when he first came out from New Zealand, right? And
Richard Wild.
Yeah, I put together the band called Wild and Reckless, and he was the lead singer, and I managed that band and got its gigs, and I wrote songs for the band and recorded with them, blah blah blah. So we were top mates, right? And we toured New South Wales together, doing all the pubs and stuff. Anyhow, so when he became Mr. MTV, he was always like super keen on anything I was doing, and MTV bought into Sons of Steel while other people didn't. You know, right. Yeah. We had some awful situations that occurred with Sons of Steel. I mean, number one, the first thing that happened was that I decided I wanted, because I came out of the music industry, I wanted to make Sons of Steel a digital audio track, right? So that the live audio was digital and all the music was digital. Never been done before, right? So the crew that was hired to record the sound live for shooting the picture walked off when I said I didn't want to use Nagras. I wanted to use digital equipment. So I had to then go and get Paul Radcliffe, who was a partner of mine at the time in crime in recording music, and he had to do his first film with booms and all sorts of stuff, which was a real freak out for him. And then the big problem was that we go to Albert's studio and we do the whole soundtrack on digital, right? That's the sound effects, the posting dialogue, the dialogue itself, the whole schmear. And then we've got to get it onto optical. So it's got to go backwards. It's got to go to colour film and go from digital to optical. And colour film just said, won't happen. Can't do it. I said, bullshit. Bruce Brown said, yeah, crap. I'll tell you how we'll do it. We brought the equipment from Albert's to colour film, and we sat there for 2 days until we could get it hooked up and working. And we got it. We got the sound across. It was in ultra stereo, and that came across. So that was just one of the barriers that Sons of Steel broke. And at the end of the day, I discovered the trick behind what we'd done is that we paved the way for them to create the next film through Albert's, which was Strictly Ballroom. So they cut their teeth on Sons of Steel. All the mistakes were made on Sons of Steel at Albert's, and then Strictly Ballroom got the benefit of that. I used to say to Baz that, hey, I paved the way for you, buddy. And he went, yeah, right.
Ben, I think we've got a new drinking game on the show, 6 Degrees of Separation with Sons of Steel.
With Sons of Steel, yeah. It's the Australian version.
If I could take you back, like you began sort of talking about Rob Hartley and like what a screen presence this guy's. I reckon if anyone was to play him in like a biopic, it'd have to be Sean Pertwee, surely. Like he looks a lot like him, but he
totally looks like Vin Diesel too, I reckon.
Yeah, totally unpredictable and dangerous. The quality he puts on screen. Was working with him hellish? Was it fun? Like, what was the experience?
He was brilliant. He was great. But he was a bit of a gym nut. He had to be working out all the time to keep that body of his in shape. He's not a tall man, but by gosh, he had a big body, right?
Yep.
And then he had a few little problems because it was an unfamiliar turf to him, and one particular one that I could relate to is the fact when we were shooting a scene where he and Hope are escaping the headquarters of Oceania, and they're fronted by several troopers, and they fight their way out. And a great scene where these troopers have guns on them, and both of them knock the guns away and flatten the two troopers. And so I had a multiple camera set up with Joe, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. We didn't have much time to shoot. It was an elaborate entrance to an insurance company in Sydney. Matter of fact, I saw it on Matrix the other night. They'd used it again. And so we're set up to do this, and we do a bit of a walkthrough on it, and the gun goes off when Alice goes to knock it out of the guy's hand and shoots him in the arm, and it peppered his arm with all the gunk that comes out of one of those blank cartridges. And so the nurse comes running over, and they clean it all up, and they said, "Oh, shoot's off. He can't continue like this." And Alice is really grumpy. He's going, no way, man. We're not calling this off. This is a big scene in the movie, man. We've got to take it. I don't want to. Let's do it. I said, all right, let's do it. So we set up for it again. And he's really dirty at this stunty for shooting him. So I'm on the ground with Joe with the camera pointed up at Alice. And Alice looks down at me, Rob. He looks down at me, and just as I'm about to call action, he goes, "Watch this." and I call action, and he goes, whack, and he smacks the guy in the head and knocks him out. Just decked him. And the whole crew walked off. They didn't say anything. They just all walked off. You don't do that, right? You don't smack a stunty because he's leaning into it. He's ready. So that was a lesson for Alice, because he had to win the crew back, and it took a few days, but he got him. He got him because his performances were so good. He was such a really nice man, and they all kind of understood that it was retribution after being shot. So but there you go. That was what it was like working.
Sorry, I'm curious about the story behind his haircut in the film.
Well, he rocked up into Sydney from Perth ready to shoot the film, and he had spiky blonde hair. And I go, "What's this, man? The last time we shot, you had any bum, And he goes, "Oh man, I just decided to hack it off." And we go, "Oh no, he looked nothing like what I imagined Black Alice supposed to look like." So we looked all over town, and we found these people called Tribes who were doing hair extensions, and I brought them in as part of the crew of the film to do all the hair. So I sat with them, and we designed up all the hair, and we decided to shave Rob right up, and then do all hair extensions on top, right down to the back of his knees, and that's what it is. It's all hair extensions, and he wore them for a year. he wouldn't take them out when we finished the film.
It's almost like a character all in itself.
It is.
Between the haircut and his voice in the film, which is so different from when you hear him actually sing.
You're right.
That voice it's so, it's such an interesting kind of mix.
Can you get some of those for Ben?
Yeah. Are they still around? Because I wouldn't mind having hair down to my backside.
I don't know. They probably still do them. You've got to have hair to start with, though.
Yeah.
You can't just glue it. I suppose it would be weird if I just
they're
glued
extensions,
it on top.
mate.
Oh, they could probably nail it onto your head, mate.
That's what they invented staple guns for, right?
Are you still in touch with Rob? Like, where is he these days?
Oh, mate, that's another story. Right. So we've finished the film. We've gone around the world. We've premiered it in Cannes. It's just wiped them out in Cannes, so much so we're going up to the main theatre at Cannes, and the whole troupe of the Sons of Steel lead characters, myself, James Vernon. I get to the top of the stairs, and John Hurt's standing there, and he goes, "Are you royalty or something?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Because they're holding up everything in this show for you." I go, "Holy mackerel!" So that was bizarre, Anyhow, we travelled this travelling bloody cortege of bloody nuts going around the world promoting the film, right? into Los Angeles and everything. And Rob's with us all the way, and he's staying in character, which worried me a little bit because he was Black Alice. I couldn't find Rob anymore. I didn't know where he was. He'd gone missing. It was to do with the haircut, I reckon. Anyhow, we get to Sydney. We get back to Sydney, and it's all good. And we've got to start promoting the film in Sydney because Hoyts, who had come down to the set during the shoot, decided they didn't want it. They came down during the set, during the shoot, and offered me a couple of $100,000 to buy it for Australian release. And we said no at the time because we figured we didn't know what it was worth until we'd finished it. And then once we did finish it, they said because we knocked them back, they weren't interested. So we had to put the my dog's going mad. We had to put it on ourselves. So we had to buy the time and put it on in the cinemas around Australia. That's okay. Anyhow, at the end of the day, we're pretty well run out of money by then. You got. I'd mortgaged my house, my life, and everything to try and finish the film so that we could do all the post. Anyhow, stop it. Anyhow, Rob was staying at the Siebel Townhouse, and we got a call from SBS, the movie show, to do an interview with Margaret Pomeranz. And Dave Stratton had already seen the film in Cannes and just glowed. He loved it. He raved about it. He thought it was going to be the next massive thing out of Australia. It was really cool how he helped us. And so did the AFC. Everybody helped us over there, all the Aussies. It was great. Anyhow, I called Rob and said, Rob, we've got to do an interview this morning at SBS. And he goes, I want some money. And I said, man, we've got some money. We'll just do this interview. Let me talk to James and I'll get it. He said, I'm not doing anything without any money. And I said, all right. So I rang up James and I said, Rob won't do the interview without any money, mate. And he says, all right, I'll write him a check. So he wrote a check and I arranged to pick it up. So I drive to the Siebel Townhouse to give him the check, and he's gone. He's checked out. And he's gone to Perth. He got on a plane and left. And I never saw him again. The last I heard, he was a monk. So I had to do the interview in his place. And I had to take over being the face of Sons of Steel, which I didn't want to do. I was, the star supposed to be doing that because all I had was Jeff Duff and Ros Wason, and Dasha Blahova. She got up, went and did something else. Mark Hembrow was really helpful. He tried his best, but at the end of the day, I needed the star, and I didn't have him, and I couldn't find him again. So I searched for him, and I put out feelers for him. The last I heard, he jumped up on stage in Perth and just sang a couple of songs with a heavy metal band over there a few years ago, and then disappeared into the ether again. So that's what happened to Rob Hartley.
Wow. Were you going to add something there, Ben? I can see
No,
your
it's just
face.
he's like a great Australian myth. He's like
He is.
Bunyip or the Dingo Woman.
He
Just
is.
look for the monk with the extensions.
With the
Yeah.
Did they let him? Did they let you keep the hair extensions when you're a monk?
Well, they let him jump on stage with a metal band.
I think they all came out, and I think what happened with Rob, I think it wasn't so much about the check. I think he all of a sudden looked in a mirror and saw Rob Hartley. I think it just the character caught up. Not the character, his own character caught up with the Black Alice character at the Siebel Townhouse. Yeah. And I think the realization of who he was and who this character was too much for him. And he just couldn't hack it. And out came, I think, the extent. He probably pulled them all out and jumped on a plane and flew to Perth.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I never counted on that because I saw him as being larger than life. But I think maybe he saw himself as being larger than life too. But the reality of it wasn't so.
Yeah.
Isn't
it? Who was it? Was it Bill Murray that said with people that are new to fame, you give them 3 years, and if they don't snap out of it, you've lost them forever?
I didn't know that. That's absolutely on the money, mate. It was about 3 years since we started, since Nightmare to Sons of Steel.
Because that's how they explain a lot of bad behavior with like up and coming stars in Hollywood. Like give them 3 years, and if they don't snap out of it, then they're gone.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's the way I heard it was that you've got 5 years. I heard 5.
Okay. Yeah.
You've got 5 years to decide whether or not you're going to be an arsehole.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. Okay.
And
Well, that you see, that didn't have to happen with Jeff Duff, because Jeff Duff remained in character, because Sector Jeff Duff was Jeff Duff.
Yeah.
He just played himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because he does definitely give off that vibe during the premiere when he gets interviewed
Oh yeah.
and stuff, and you're like, this guy is like, it's like the same character that's playing in the film.
He still does it. When I talk to him, I call him Sector. When I send him emails, he's Sector, and he does his Bowie shows and everything, and he tours all over Australia. But he's still the same guy.
Well, I mean, we're all these years later, and now we've got this really delicious, amazing deluxe sort of Blu-ray release from Umbrella. I wonder if Rob might see it on his social media or in a store, and suddenly have a reawakening.
No, look, he's had that opportunity before, because I did the Revelation Film Festival over there in Perth back in 2012.
Yeah.
And I did radio interviews and everything, and I really vibed it up to try and attract him to the festival, And I even recut part of the film so I put some new songs into the film with new vision, and during the festival I then had Jeff Duff stand up in the crowd, take a microphone, and sing the songs to the backtracks that I put in the film in a spotlight, which just blew the people away. There was Sector singing amongst the audience. So it was really exciting and really worked well. And then, but it didn't attract him. It didn't attract any, all the other people, even the members of the original Black Alice band came down, but not Rob. They didn't turn up.
Well, the movie certainly lives on. Like as I said, this new Blu-ray release is glorious. Did you have much involvement with it?
Yes, I did. You
did
as
it
much
all.
as I could, I suppose, as usual.
Yeah, I'll have you know that I'm very happy to be taking credit for all of Gary's work on the.
Good on you. No, it was a harmonious thing, mate. It was wonderful. The Umbrella have been brilliant. It was great working with Ben, because I got the opportunity to put some things on the Blu-ray that I always wanted to. I wanted to spell out some of the story of Sons of Steel. I wanted to show some of the background information. My brother was there all the way through the shoot with a video camera, shooting the scenes of all the back stuff. It was fantastic, and we got to put it all on there. So it's a real great little package. I reckon it's the highlight of Sons of Steel, getting it out at this stage, and finally it might get to its audience. I've been trying for 35 years to get it to its audience. And, every time I do get it out into a festival or something, I watch the faces and hear the result of people seeing it. And I go, why is this film not distributed properly? Well, only 3 months ago, 4 months ago, it played in the Czech Republic, right, at a thing called Shockproof Film Festival. So I sent over the file for it. They play it at the festival, and they ring me up, send me an email rather, and said, hey, listen, it went over so well on Saturday night in Prague, we want to put it on for the next 2 Saturday nights. And I said, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. So they got packed houses, and then on the last night, people came dressed as Sons of Steel, like dressed as Rob Hartley, and they were all standing up and singing along with the songs in the movie, and they sent me pictures of it. It was just insane. And the whole reason for these young people digging Sons of Steel was 2 things. The music still related to them, but the story related to the Ukraine and the fear they had of a nuclear holocaust coming. So it kind of all clicked with them, right? And when Alice sits on the giant penis and rides it out at the start, they all cheered because it has Made in America on it, right? So, the resurgence of the film tells me that the audience is still out there.
I mean, this should right now be a call to action for people. Like, go out and buy this delicious Blu-ray. It comes out, what was it, 5th of October, I think, Ben?
5th of October, yes. Both on the Umbrella web store and at all good retailers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Go on.
yeah, I hope it becomes a resurgence for you, and I hope it deserves to be like a midnight movie, like a something that's screened theatrically, like more often than not.
Well, it's the books, mate. I've written it into a series of 8 books. So I've taken the context of the movie, lifted it to today, and made it much more serious. It's not camp like the movie. This is a full-on sci-fi story. So I've written, the first one's about to come out. I've written a whole 8 in series. So it lives on. Black Alice lives on.
There's a universe to dive into.
Absolutely. He's out there time traveling, the reluctant time traveler, trying to save the universe and getting himself into all sorts of shit. So that's him.
Amazing.
That's all available directly through you, isn't it, Gary, at the sonsofsteel.rocks website?
That's it, mate. Yeah, yep, that's it. It still lives on. I'm obsessed.
And I guess, after this, we'll see you in our spin-off true crime podcast, The Search for Rob Hartley.
Yeah. Well, I've been writing Carter Brown, right? So that could be one of the first stories in the Carter Brown.
Amazing, yeah.
Oh, geez, it's been so awesome being able to chat with you. I've certainly learnt more about the movie than I ever knew, and I hope, maybe we can talk again one day if these books take off. We can even chat about them. We're not a book podcast, but I'm happy to talk about it.
Oh, mate, we haven't even touched on the music, so
that too.
Yeah, there's plenty of that. There's tons of stories there. So happy to talk anytime, Glenn. It's lovely talking to you, mate. I love your background. Well. It's a bit like mine.
Yeah.
It all looks good. All happening.
And I love where you work.
You too, Ben. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Gary. Much appreciated.
Black Alice, the man in question, is a peace activist.
The Pacific Nude-Free Zone is about to come undone.
The man is a rebel, and rebels must be destroyed.
Sick goose.
Get this thing out of my neck. I've got to get back.
Melted bodies.
I'm demolecularized.
I bet you're the sort of bloke who picks his underpants out of his bum with his finger while he's talking to you.
Come and sit on Alice's knee.
Slip on the appropriate underpants and socks.